So for our audience, can you introduce yourself? So your name, major in college, what field you like to pursue, or I think you're already working. Fun facts about yourself.
Hi, my name is Caeley Looney. I got my bachelor's in aerospace engineering from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida. And I'm currently working as a mission analyst on small sat programs at L3 Harris Technologies.
Ooh, okay. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you do in your day-to-day role?
Sure. So I do a lot of defense work, so I can't say like too much about what I do, but what I guess I can say is as a mission analyst, we get to see a lot of the whole, like the big picture. So we kind of get to work in this unique position where we communicate with every subsystem lead for like satellites and satellite constellations. And so typically what my job entails is we often run into problems like any piece of technology does, and I'm the one who is able to see how all the subsystems connect. So if a problem's going on in like the attitude determination and control system and the subsystem lead has a solution, they'll come to me and make sure that it works with our mission requirements, and that it works with our power subsystem and our propulsion system, and make sure nothing like actually breaks the system. So a lot of my day-to-day life is MATLAB and STK, which is kind of like a orbit simulation tool. So it's really cool how I get to see not just the system as a whole, but I get to see all of the orbitology and spacecraft and attitude dynamics that go into it. So
are you more on the software side of things or the hardware?
Definitely the software. I don't get to touch any of the satellite pieces, which is a little bit sad, but I do get to do a lot of programming, and it's not so much the programming for the spacecraft itself. It's a lot of the like analysis code that'll analyze large data sets or determine like what our mission parameters need to be and things like that.
How recently have you graduated college? Are you still in college?
So I graduated in May of 2018, and I started working, at Harris as my first full-time job right out of college, pretty much a few weeks later.
So how'd you first get into STEM?
So I grew up, and I was one of those lucky kids where both my parents were into STEM, and so I kind of grew up with this family who like was really good at science and math, and then like elementary and middle school me wanted to be a fashion designer. And so my mom was like, okay, I'm not so sure. And if like you go back and you see like pictures of me in elementary school, like you would know just from my fashion sense that I was not destined to be a fashion designer. I did Girl Scouts pretty much my whole life before college, I guess, and we saw in one of like their program magazines that they were starting a FIRST robotics program. My mom was like, okay, so fashion design's not for you. And so she's like, let's just go to this. It'll be painless, I promise. We'll just like sit there, and if you just so happen to get interested by the end of it, like more than happy to sign you up for a team. And so she kind of dragged me into the meeting, and I absolutely like fell in love with the robots. And so I joined the first team, and I was on it from 6th grade all the way through 12th grade. And that was kind of how I got started in STEM. And then because of that, like I took all of the extra science courses, and I was looking for like science camps outside of that. And that kind of sparked my interest in aerospace engineering. So definitely was the foundation for it all.
And I'm sure this was a little while back, but is there a favorite like robot? I think that's what like you guys built, right? Like competition robots. Is there anything you built specifically that you're really excited about?
I don't know. So like first is they're not like battle bots or anything. They like each do like a specific like game for that year. And so I'm not sure if I ever had like a absolute favorite. I wish that I was around. I think it was this last year they did something that was space themed. So of course, like I missed the aerospace game, but I still ended up in aerospace engineering. So I guess it worked out okay, but I wish I had been around for that one.
And what about now? Are there any projects? I mean, I'm sure they're all confidential, but anything that you have worked on maybe in college or now that you can share or want to share?
The good thing about like how like my job is that a lot of people may not be seeing the impact of what I do, but I know the impact of what I do. So because I do a lot of defense work, I know that I'm playing like a direct role in helping our soldiers overseas and things like that. And so while the people, here and like the everyday, civilians may not, know exactly what I'm doing or have a good understanding of what I'm doing or like even be able to know what I'm doing, I know that I'm, making kind of my mark on the world. And I really love like spacecraft and satellite design. But I think that if I had to pick an absolute favorite project, it was in my last semester at college, I was interning at NASA at Kennedy Space Center. I got to do some research on dual quaternions, which are kind of interesting. So it's if you think about the way a screw moves, how it rotates and it moves inward at the same time. So a dual quaternion describes that motion specifically, whereas and obviously this is probably a little advanced, but like a normal quaternion just describes like one of those. And so putting them together is like something that's really, really helpful to reduce computing times for asteroid landing missions, because it looks just like that. You have to orient your spacecraft and you have to descend onto the asteroid at the same time. So I got to work a little bit on some of their prototype like asteroid mining spacecrafts and work in dual quaternions while I was there, and that was a heck of an experience for sure.
Yeah, so I don't know the exact like balance in like if it's different compared to tech or like computer science compared to like aerospace. Would you say there's like a 50-50? I doubt it, but for male to female, like, and does it feel like for male dominated if you've had any experiences?
Well, I think it depends on what part of aerospace you work in. Planes and commercial sides, it may be a little bit better, but because aerospace engineering is typically more of the like hands-on, getting your hands dirty rather than sitting at the computer, it's not as appealing to females. Like I know going through college, we had like a 1-in-7 ratio. Defense in general is a field that I think is way behind on, their diversity numbers. And so I'm almost always the only female in the room, and I'm typically surrounded by middle-aged white males, which tends to be very intimidating. And so as much as I wish I could say it gets better after college, it certainly does not, at least not yet. But I'm hoping that one day I will not be the only female in the room anymore.
So is there anything that you've gone through, specific or not, or microaggressions or anything that you have overcome or have learned to deal with, or any advice you have for females who might be looking to enter aerospace?
I think that if you ask just about any girl who attended my university and went through the aerospace engineering degree program, they would be able to tell you that they face some kind of bias, whether it be sexist comments from professors, or I knew that I should not wear yoga pants on campus because it was a 1-to-7 ratio, and I knew that I would get comments about that, and those kinds of things kind of suck. But I also know that in the long run, I love aerospace engineering. I love what I do, and so I wouldn't give that up for all of the comments in the world. And so I think my advice in general is to just stick with it, and knowing that it's not going to be easy, but knowing that it'll be worth it. And then I think the other thing to that is to find yourself a support system. Find yourself an all-female group, whether it's mine was the National Center for Women in Information Technology, or NCWIT. They were such a huge support system for me going through high school, college, and even now, anytime I have a question or need some advice, I'm in that group asking away. And yeah, just to seek out people like you that you can rely on, ask questions to, and know that they'll be there when you do get those comments and you need the little extra push to remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing.
So what's the most interesting thing about you that we wouldn't just learn from your resume, maybe a passion or a hobby?
To keep it, I guess, kind of tech related, I actually run a 501c3 nonprofit organization in my quote unquote, I guess, spare time. The what I get of that, called Reinvented Inc. And we are creating the nation's first print magazine for women in STEM. So the goal was kind of to combine 17 and popular science by kind of keeping that feminine aspect that 17 has, while writing actual content that we care about that also features, our female role models like Megan Smith and Cassie Williams or Dr. Anita Sengupta. Those are a few in our first issue.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is like similar to Girl Genius's mission of just, spreading knowledge and just like sharing stuff and making a platform for women in STEAM. What would you say is like the best learning experience you've had, maybe through a failure or something else that you can share, or what you learned out of it?
I mean, I think that's like a really big part of it is knowing how to learn from your failures.
Right.
But I think that the best learning experiences that I've had have always been outside of the classroom. So I looked for every opportunity that I could to learn more about computer science. So as an aerospace engineer, I didn't take any coding classes besides MacLeod, which kind of sucked because I really enjoyed coding. I was the programmer, or one of the programmers on my robotics team, and I did some programs at Microsoft and stuff. And so when I got to college, I wasn't coding anymore and I missed it. So I started going to hackathons, like all the Major League Hackathon events, and I did Square Code Camp, and I went out to one of like the Qualcomm Women's Summits and all of that. And all of those experiences have been the most valuable in terms of learning, I think, for me, because I've gotten to learn not only on my own time, but in my own kind of field of passion outside of, being required to do homework and study for tests and all of that. So I highly encourage like any girl who's interested, especially in computer science, to try and go to these kinds of events.
So you mentioned like going to a lot of events and, networking outside of your regular community just to find more women. Did you have a mentor, or do you want to find a mentor, and how they might help you?
I've given this question a lot of thought because I get asked it quite often, and every time I try and think, like, I didn't really have a mentor. Okay. I had a lot of support from other girls who I've met through code camps or conferences or hackathons or the NC-WIT page, but I don't think I've ever had someone that I necessarily looked up to as a mentor in aerospace engineering. I think that I've definitely had role models. I think my mom was one of my biggest role models for sure. And then of course, like I, was always looking up to Megan Smith and Sheryl Sandberg and Michelle Obama and all of them. But I never had someone who worked with me like kind of hand in hand. And so when I got to L3 Harris, or formerly Harris when I first started, I kind of got assigned a mentor, and he is also a middle-aged male. So I was kind of like, all right, well, and I hope he doesn't watch this because he'll get grumpy. But I was like, all right, I mean, I guess he's the subject matter expert. I'm sure I'm gonna learn a lot. And like, he's actually been like incredibly supportive. Like he's always like trying to make me laugh when he sees that I'm frustrated. He comes to like any time I have to present, so he can be there to like help me in case I freeze. And he's always been super helpful and like giving me information and stuff back. And so now that I have a mentor, I really wish that I had a mentor sooner, especially going through college and stuff, because it's definitely so valuable to have one. And so if you ever get the opportunity to have one, definitely another major suggestion is to take that.
It's awesome that you mentioned that, because there's a program called Built by Girls Wave that that gives girls an opportunity.
Yeah, I'm actually an advisee on that. So now that I'm out in the field, I can finally like actually be a mentor now and not be a mentee. So I was really excited when I got to like, sign up for that program and like actually mentor someone now.
Yeah, because I feel like finding a mentor is so important. I did the WAVE program. I'm in my 3rd cycle right now, and just talking to women who are in the tech industry, in the real life and like experiencing it's such an amazing experience just to get to hear what they're doing, hear about their projects and everything. So yeah, if you're watching and you want to check it out, it's a great way to find a mentor. Okay, and to wrap this up, Caeley, do you have any advice for any girl looking to get into STEAM or specifically into aerospace engineering?
The biggest one is to just know your end goal and stick with it. And so like I came into college with this dream of being an aerospace engineer, and so that's been like the thing that I clung on to every time, I had a sexist comment or I got a bad grade or, something. And so every time like something's gone wrong, I just remember why I'm sticking it out. I knew that at the end of it, it would be worth it. I would be an aerospace engineer. I'd be working on satellites. I'd be working on things that go into space. And that was, worth far more than all of the terrible things combined. And I think the other thing is to not be afraid to put yourself out there. I think that you have to take every opportunity that you get handed, or at least consider every opportunity that you get handed, and to never just disqualify yourself from the start. And I think that if I hadn't taken the opportunity to go to Square Code Camp or to go to the Qualcomm event or to go to all of these hackathons and go to like the Grace Hopper conference and stuff, I would not be where I am today. So I think that that's also really important.
Yeah, no, I think you shared some really great tips here. A lot of girls are going to benefit from this. I definitely did. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Wogrammer X Girl Genius Magazine's new series where we interview women in the tech industry and where they share their experiences. So thank you. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe below.